Hey, Nikki here. So, had an interesting week this week from a GP that refused to write a prescription for a patient, which was rather frustrating to say the least, to a conversation with a work colleague yesterday and her explaining how she wished that she was thinner, how she weighed less, and how she wished that she didn't feel so heavy. So a conversation happened where it was like, well, how would you like to feel? And then asking her, well, why can't you feel like that? And then ultimately the response being that it's in my genetics that I have these conditions and I have this DNA. But what if that isn't true? What if that is just what we've been told and we've never questioned it? So mental health is a really interesting thing. It is at an all-time high since COVID. And as I explained with my poor patient earlier, that the GP wouldn't write a prescription. However, they seem to write prescriptions out for antidepressants and anti-anxiety tablets like they're Smarties. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a place for them, because there is, and I've taken them. I've been in that situation myself. But what if that is just like a plaster putting it over a wound and not allowing the wound to be healed? What if there is another way that is a permanent solution? Because what if it is your thoughts that are actually creating this reality, these feelings that you are living with, that you really would rather that you didn't? But what if you actually have a choice? Because this is what I've learned, that actually there is a choice. And there is another way that is actually a permanent solution out of your health issues. Now, this isn't just any health issues, but however, I do believe that our mind and our thoughts can help probably just about any health condition that there is out there. It's about your perception of it, whether you choose to allow it to get in your way, or whether you actually see that despite any situation, whether that be your health, your finances, your relationships, whatever it is, you don't have to have your focus on all of these things that are around you. And actually, it's about how you feel inside. When I asked this colleague, well, what would your life be like if your body was how you wanted it? And instantly the answer is, well, my life will be better. I'm going to feel better. So is it true that no matter what it is that we want, it isn't really about the actual thing that we have? It's more about how we're actually going to feel about ourselves. So I'll tell you a story of Andy. Now, Andy is someone that I love dearly. I've changed the name to protect their identity, but this is somebody that I love unconditionally. And throughout Andy's childhood, Andy never seemed to get the approval from his dad that he had always been looking for. Never once did his dad pat him on the back and say, well done, you've done really, really well, whether it be at school, outside of school, with anything. And so the drive in Andy's life of getting his dad's approval led to probably just about every single decision that he's ever made. So Andy came out of school with not very much qualifications. He had a job in retail that he absolutely hated. Now, fortunately, Andy is quite strong-minded, so he actually signed up to go back to college, did a BTEC course, which was the equivalent of 5 GCSEs, put himself through a HND, then signed up to an apprenticeship, which he got, completed the apprenticeship, and then went into the world of contracting. So working for various different employers for 6 months at a time, and then moving on to the next one. So 2 years ago, Andy decided that he was going to go to the other side of the world with his contracting. And when he first got there, he was so excited, and he's seeing all of these new things, and he's venturing out, seeing a brand new country, brand new terrains, because he loves hiking, he loves mountain climbing, and he's going off into the rainforest, and he's seeing all these various different poisonous snakes and spiders that would terrify the living daylights out of me, but hey, that's Andy's thing, and he's really, really enjoying it. But however, in his work life, that isn't how Andy's feeling. He is afraid. He's afraid they're going to let him go. He's had this fear for years. With every contract that he's ever gone to, he's always feared that they're going to let him go, that they don't like him, that they don't value his work, that they don't value what he brings to the team. As a contractor, he sort of feels like an outsider because, you know, the permanent full-time workforce, he isn't permanent. He's not going to stay there forever. And so it's not long before Andy is phoning home and saying, they're going to let me go. No, we've had this conversation many, many times before. You've thought this with every contract that you've ever been to. They've never let you go. They value you. You do a good job. Believe in yourself. Within 7 months, 8 months, things had escalated to such a degree that Andy now has psychosis. Now, he doesn't realise that that's what he's got, but these thoughts keep going on in his head, and he thinks that the people that he works for, they've contacted the police. They don't trust Andy. They think that he's a paedophile. So they are helping the police with their investigations. He's absolutely terrified. He needs to get home because all of these things are happening. And these thoughts just keep going round and round in his head, so much so that he's now hiding his phone in the fridge because he believes that the police are downloading things from his phone. He eventually does get back to the UK. The very first action that Andy takes is to go to the police station to hand himself in. Much to Andy's surprise, the police don't arrest him. The British police tell him he's not a person of interest. There is nothing on the system. And if there was anything going on with the Australian police, if they really believed that these things were actually happening, then they would have had plenty of time to contact the English police, and they would have been there at the airport to meet him. This leaves Andy confused, because in his mind, this is so, so real. So when I say that thought a really extreme level, and it's also on the absolute worst end of the scale. Who wants to believe that they're a paedophile? Or who wants to actually live terrified that the police and people are after them? and want to cause them harm. Let's face it, I'd like to think that there's not a person on the planet that would actually choose to feel that way. But now here's a question. If somebody can actually create something so bad, what if we had the opposite thoughts to actually create something that is absolutely phenomenal? What if you chose to think and believe that you was completely confident, that you was completely able to achieve absolutely anything that you wanted to? And if you actually believe that to be completely true, in exactly the same way almost as someone with psychosis, then what would your actions be? Clearly it wouldn't be to go to a police station, but then what actions that are aligned with your thoughts would you actually start to take? Something to bear in mind and think about. As humans, we are capable of extraordinary things. And here's the other thing, and you might want to write this down. Absolutely everything that you are surrounded by was once created in somebody's mind. You go back thousands and thousands of years. They didn't have chairs. They didn't have computers. They didn't have laptops. They didn't have mobile phones. They didn't have cars. Absolutely anything that you look at, once upon a time, did not exist. It was a thought in somebody's mind. I live just outside of Heathrow. I'm sure the Wright brothers were considered absolutely crazy when they first had this idea of a flying vehicle to fly us from country to country. Heathrow is one of the busiest airports in the world. I can assure you there's a plane goes over my house once every 30 seconds. But that was just an idea that they completely believed in. But what was the other people around them believing? Do you suppose that they believed that they were onto something? Or do you suppose that they believed that they were completely insane? Now, I'd like to think that there are more people that do not believe that somebody with psychosis is completely insane. But however, there is still a stigma attached to mental health. And as somebody that works in the hospital, I cannot tell you the amount of patients that come in that are on antidepressants and anti-anxieties. But it's just a plaster. It doesn't resolve the thoughts that are going around in the person's head. It may settle things down, and I'm not saying for 1 minute that there isn't a place for them. When someone is really in the thick of a crisis in their life, are them tablets useful? 100%. 100%. But as something to take lifelong? Probably not. I most certainly wouldn't choose it. And I have also been in the situation of needing antidepressants. So what is the way around it? Well, at my live event, I share this. I share how thoughts create our reality. Our thoughts create emotions within us. A lot of these emotions make us feel bad because the thought is a negative thought, creates a negative emotion, creates back a negative thought. It's a loop. And within this emotional and thought loop, it then makes you take actions or make decisions based on this whole negative loop that you end up getting stuck in. And hey, like I said, I've been there. That was me. And I can now look back at my life and realize how this loop created my entire life up until 3 years ago, when the loss of a friend changed my thought process in an instant. It made me make a decision that I was going to get happy no matter what it took. And through making that decision, I am now at a place that I know, or I'm 99% certain, that I don't believe I would ever, ever, ever need antidepressants ever again. That isn't to say that my life is perfect. Things still come up. Things can still trigger me. But however, I do now have the resilience to bounce back. I have the tools in my arsenal to know how to switch my thoughts. I have the tools in my arsenal to ask the question, is this real? What am I believing? Because for the most part, the majority of us have all been brought up in this conditional mindset that if somebody treats you badly, it reflects upon you. But does it really? Does it reflect on you? You could argue, yes, actually it does. It reflects on what you are tolerating. But does it not reflect more on the other person, on how they're willing to treat somebody, on how they think that it is the right thing to do to treat somebody badly? But then here's the other thing. Are most people thinking about how they're impacting on somebody else? Or are we all generally going along in our own mind, thinking about our own lives, our own problems, our own issues that are going on? We're not thinking about other people. When I'm in my car, when there's traffic and someone stops or they do something and I start yelling, I'm not thinking about them and whether they're in a hurry or whether they have had bad news. I'm thinking about, I just want to get to where I'm going. Is that not true of all of us? In the supermarket, someone just stops the trolley smack bang in the middle of the aisle. They're not thinking about the person that's behind them. They're wrapped in their own thoughts. Thoughts are such powerful things when used in the right way, can take you to places in your life that you cannot even imagine. How can I say this? Because it's happened to me. From changing my thoughts, it has changed everything, not only how I see myself, but how I see others. So how I wake up in the morning. So how could you change your thoughts? So how about, instead of looking at the past, looking at things that have happened and putting meanings to them which are likely untrue, and stop looking at the past as evidence of what you can actually achieve in the future? Because all the past is proof of is that the ways you tried before weren't successful. But that isn't to say that there isn't another way that is successful. So what if there is other possibilities? What if, by changing the way that you think and the way that you feel and the way that you see things, opens up an absolute world of possibility? If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And I believe it was Albert Einstein who said to believe that you can keep doing the same thing and get different results is actually the definition of insanity. And is it not true that all of us, to a certain degree, are actually stuck in that insanity of thinking, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and something one day is going to change? So if you are hearing this, watching this video, and you are ready to make the change in your life, then click the link below and come and join a 2-hour free, completely free webinar where you might actually get some insights into what your thoughts are leading you to and how those thoughts are impacting on your mental health, on your physical health. You may be someone who is on antidepressants, who may be living with anxiety every single day and just completely jumpy and worrying about everything. Are you ready to stop living like that? Are you ready to make the choice to do something different? Are you ready to leave the medication behind once you have learned how to control your thoughts and control your feelings? Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you hopefully at the live webinar. Click the link, see the dates, sign up. All it's going to cost you is your time. What else have you got to lose? But you might just get the nugget that you've been waiting for, that makes complete sense to you, that makes you willing to take the opportunity being presented to you to leave the life behind that you've been living and to step into a completely healthy, vital, energetic, happy life that you deserve to have.